Happy New Year to all of you. Bonne année and frohes neues Jahr. And welcome to this press briefing with our Group President Iratxe García Perez, to whom I hand over now, and then we take your questions afterwards. Merci.
Buenos días. Good morning, everybody. And first of all, of course, I would like to wish you all the very best for the year that is just starting. I do hope that you managed to have some kind of a rest over the break, because there's an awful lot of work ahead of us this year. And therefore, I think we really got to be on top form. Well, I, unfortunately, didn't start the year terribly well. I've got a few health issues, but I am here, and I am, at the minute my flu and cold is over, I am raring to go, and I'll be here 100% to tackle all the tasks we have ahead. Now, on this week's plenary session, just to give you a brief overview of those issues that I do think are important to flag to you, I'll do that, and then I think we can have some comments from you now on the Croatian presidency. As we speak, the debate is happening in the hemicycle now. For our political group, I spoke and we welcomed the presidency, and we do really hope that they will be able to make headway on some important points that are on the table at the moment. We have asked them to be more ambitious in certain areas where we see that in their work programme things are a little weak. There are not clear references, for example, to migration, to the role that we can play at the moment there. And we would also like to see more ambition when it comes to the development and the defence of the European social pillar, issues such as unemployment, child guarantee, fighting poverty. These are essential, and we feel that they ought to be included in the work programme of the presidency of Croatia. So we welcome the reference to the financial framework and that the work that they want to do to ensure that that moves forward. But we've also been very clear that we welcome the commitment, but we've also said that the proposal that they are working on cannot go below the objectives that we have set in this Parliament, in this House, on three important points. Firstly, the contribution to the budget by member states, the discussion on own resources, but also the discussion on changes to fiscal rules and tax rules that can make the changes that we need to see at the moment. On the new Green Deal, that's something we're going to be discussing tomorrow in the plenary session here in the Parliament. And you know that in our political group, we want to lead on getting a very ambitious commitment from the European commitment to lead the changes that we need in the social, economic and environmental model in Europe. We need change there. And we really do stress that we have to have a deal that clearly does combine the green side with the social side. And therefore that we do need to talk about the Fair Transition Fund and sustainable investment, and then a roadmap for a social Europe. And we will fight to have all of these measures included, and also to ensure that there is strong financing for all of this. These, of course, are discussions that are very closely interlinked, because the MFF does have to reflect that commitment on the part of the European Commission to finance the new Green Deal so that we can tackle all of these issues. We're also going to be discussing the rule of law when it comes to Hungary and Poland. Now, these are issues that are of huge concern to our political group, of course, and they are indeed on the agenda for this week. And that is because we in the Socialist Group wanted to include that. Now, on Poland, I want to take advantage in this press conference to express our solidarity with judges throughout Europe. Now that there is this silent protest of judges in Poland, in Warsaw, and we have to support that. We have to support the independence of judges and the judiciary. And I wanted to mention the situation in Poland, but in our political group, we have included an amendment to ensure that there is that reference. And we do feel that it is very important when we talk about defending the rule of law, it is absolutely essential that we are clear on that particular point. And then on Hungary, well, unfortunately, what is happening in Hungary is something that is not sustainable. Since we voted on triggering Article 7, nothing has happened. There are these steps from the government to weaken the National Assembly and the strength of the opposition, and that is not something that we can support. So it's absolutely essential that we do have this discussion and that we use the discussion to ask the Commission for a sound, clear position, a robust position on what is happening there. And we do hope that we will get that clear and robust response from the Commission this week. And then, of course, there is the case of the Czech Republic, but that's a different matter. That is the use of community funds, and that is something that is being investigated. But again, it's an important point for us. And in general terms, we see that there is a need to tackle all of these matters so that we really do give sense to the European project in these areas. And then on the conference on the future of Europe, well, you know, we're going to be voting on a resolution that has been worked on by most of the parliamentary groups. And I think it is a step in the right direction because it does tackle the issue of the conference, but also other issues that are key for us, such as the participation of civil society. If we want to have a discussion on the future of the European Union, we cannot keep that exclusively to the role that we play here in the Parliament or in the Council or in the Commission. But civil society also has to be involved as well. And in that we have to pay special attention to young people who are such an important part of the project of constructing the Europe of the future that will be closer to people, that will work in a more flexible and a more agile way. And finally, I also wanted to mention the situation in Spain. Now, I am the president of the S&D group here, yes, but I cannot ignore what the situation is in Spain and in Catalonia at the moment. And there is a new scenario now, and that's what I want to mention now. There is a new government in Spain. We have managed to overcome the political blockage that existed in the country over the past few months, and we have a new government in Spain, and that is good news for Spain, for Catalonia, and for Europe. And I say that it's good news for Spain, Catalonia, and Europe because over and above being a government that is there ready to tackle all the challenges that we face in our country and in Europe as well, when it comes to a country that is more environmental, more fair, more egalitarian and more social. And to have all of that, the government also has other aims, and that is to work for a political solution through dialogue in Catalonia. And I do really think that this is good news. It's good news for Catalonia, as I've said, for Spain and for Europe. And on what happened with the rulings from the Supreme Court and the ECJ as well, I think that we must be consistent here, and the defence of the rule of law is not something that can be selective. It is something that we have to take on board, and we have to respect also all the legal decisions, the judicial decisions taken, whether we like them or not. But justice does have to work, and we have to allow that to happen. And our role is to respect these decisions that are taken. And so we do respect the decision from the ECJ, and therefore we have to take on board the fact that there are 2 new MEPs for Spain that have been elected and who are now in the European Parliament. And we also stick to the ruling of the Supreme Court on Mr. Junqueras, because that is independent of the ruling from the ECJ. And what we do hope is that there will be respect for European policy, respect for the European Parliament, and we must agree amongst ourselves to ensure that this Parliament is not turned into some kind of spectacle or circus. We have seen over the past few days the use of this European Parliament on the part of different political forces being used as an arena for confrontation or for a fight, and that is absolutely not what we are. We are here to peacefully construct the European Union, and that is what the men and women of Europe expect of us. They want us to find ways of improving their lives. They want us to find ways of challenging the migration, tackling the migration challenge, climate change and the climate crisis, social justice and issues such as that. And that is what our attention has to be on. That is what our day-to-day work has to be here in the European Parliament. So as I say, I do hope that we will be able to make progress in these policy areas, and that we will carry on with the rule of law, respecting the rule of law here in this House, and that this European Parliament will be able to work for people on their behalf. Thank you very much.
Next question, please, García.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Yes, thank you very much. From the Vanguardia newspaper, yesterday we had the request for a waiver of immunity for 2 new members, and people were talking about that. And I want to know that as European and Spanish socialists, what your position was, whether you've decided on a position.
Sí, en primer lugar, en cuanto...
Thank you very much. Yes, on the terms and the language use, I wanted to talk about that. The socialists did not come here to the European Parliament to challenge people. We came here to work and to respect. And when this came into the discussion, well, we will look at the content of this request, and then we will take the decision that we have to take. But this will be on a very clear basis, and that is to allow justice to work. We will not be hindering that. In the last legislature, there was a request. There were about 50 requests actually made in this parliament, and 92% of those were accepted as normal, because it is a way of allowing justice to work, as I say, and also a way of allowing members of this European Parliament to defend ourselves before justice. So, as I say, we will have a look at this request, and then we will decide on the decision that we have to take. But in the S&D group, our position is very clear, and that is to allow justice to work. And in the same way is that we also want to work. We want to let justice work, and we also want to work for a clear political solution. Thank you.
In the front.
Hola, Laura Zornoza de...
Thank you very much, BBC. The words of Puigdemont was that he was absolutely sure that the S&D would be voting against that request, because of the line that people have been talking about dialogue. And I don't know whether you have any comment on what he himself said, Puigdemont, that is. And then I also wanted to ask about what the S&D line would be on these two new MEPs, whether there has been contact with them, whether there will be some kind of relations with them when they enter here. Thank you. Well, on the last question, your second question, we haven't had any contact with them yet. And we will see how things develop over the next few months. But let me say again that if they have come here to the Parliament to work for Europe, well, then there will be areas of common discussion and dialogue, and we will participate in that in the in our group as well. Then on the issue of what Mr. Puigdemont himself has said, he has said that this making this judicial isn't in line with the political thinking as well. But the truth is that the solution to the conflict in Catalonia has to come through political dialogue and political work, but that is not incompatible with allowing justice to work and respecting the work that is done in that field. There are now a number of proceedings that are open, and we do have to respect that work. And when I was talking about the rule of law in Poland and saying that we do have to respect the independence of the judiciary there, well, the same goes. One thing is to understand that we need to work through dialogue in order to find a political solution. Another thing is allowing justice to work as well. And these two issues are not incompatible, nor should they be. Because I want to say again, we cannot be selective when it comes to our defence of the rule of law. We do have to allow justice to act, justice to work, and ensure that the situation is there for justice to be able to work. And at the same time, we've got to work politically so that we can find a solution, so that we can allow peaceful coexistence and understanding with Catalonia again. And we cannot. And it is not true that these things are not compatible. They have to be compatible. We have to do what we have to do, but that does not mean we stop justice from doing what it has to do either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Taparaga. I'm a Romanian journalist from G4 Media. Regarding the situation of rule of law in Poland, another very important issue, at least for the socialists, is the so-called no-pass zone for LGBT. And the European Parliament adopted a resolution condemning so-called free zones from LGBT. But the problem is that, as far as we know, the Romanian socialists voted against this resolution. And I would like to comment a little bit the situation, and if you would like to see what do you intend to do in order to discipline Romanian socialists. Very well. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias por la pregunta.
Thank you very much for your question. Well, the truth is that you have not been well informed. The Romanian delegation voted against that. There was one vote against, 3 abstentions, and the rest of the Romanian delegation voted in favour. I think there was a problem with one particular amendment. But I want to make it perfectly clear that the commitment of the S&D group to LGBTI is spread throughout the group, and it is also a commitment of the Romanian delegation. So that is not true. There was only one vote against, and you can double check that, actually. And what we will try to ensure within the group is to make sure that we find better ways of communicating amongst ourselves when there is a one-off problem with one amendment. So there was a problem with one amendment which led to 3 people abstaining and 1 voting against. It is not true that the Romanian delegation voted against that resolution. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rinka Vrabec-Moses. I'm coming from Croatia, and I would like you to shortly comment on what you just heard from our Prime Minister. I know that you are quite critical about the missing pillar, the social pillar in the program of Croatian presidency. But there are also some other problems with Croatia, which our government doesn't want to admit, like problems with judiciary, violation of human rights of migrants. You specifically mentioned that we should protect human rights of migrants. So what would you expect from Croatian government and its leadership during the next 6 months? And the next question is, we have a newly elected president of the state who's coming from Social Democrats. Do you think it's a good news?
Evidentemente sí.
Well, of course I do. Yes, that is good news. It's very good news that the Socialists and Democrats have won the presidential elections in Croatia, and I think that that will help us to change direction for some of the political decisions that have been taken in Croatia, which, of course, are not really to our liking. But when I spoke, I did make quite clear certain things. I did stress the European social pillar, but not just that. I spoke about issues such as migration and refugees, that we have to have a Europe that protects solidarity, not just among member states, but also among the most vulnerable sections of the population. And I also wanted to let you know that as president of the S&D group, over the next few weeks, I am going to go to Zagreb and to the border so that I can see what the situation is with refugees there, so that I can really see on the ground what the situation is. So I just wanted to let you know that that will be a trip I'll be taking over the next few weeks. And I do hope that that will lead to good results. Thank you.
To take them outside, because we have to hand over to the next group now. Wishing you all a good week, and merci, Iratxe.